We're talking about breakfast today. There's two problems that we have in our Western society with breakfast. First problem is people just don't eat breakfast. Second problem is if they do eat breakfast, they eat junk. Their breakfast consists of lots of animal products, lots of refined flours, lots of sugar. Let's think of our typical breakfast: cold cereal and milk. It's animal products, refined flour, refined sugar, or a muffin with eggs and bacon on it. So we've got lots of refined products, lots of animal products, and these are not only are they not contributing to our health, but they're detrimental to our health. So when you eat these, it enhances your disease process, it lowers your immune system, it lowers your energy. I know for a fact that there's a lot of people here today that are here because they do not feel good. You're having problems with fibromyalgia, you're having problems with diabetes, you're having trouble with depression or low energy or heart disease, or you're overweight and you can't lose the weight. These methods that I'm teaching you, these healthy options that I'm teaching you, this is the road to effortless weight loss. This is the road to health, disease prevention, and reversal of disease. There's so many studies going on right now. Scientists are finding that because most of the chronic illness in our country right now is food-induced, that by just reversing the food problem, by starting to eat healthy and getting all the processed foods out of your diet, it doesn't take long to reverse the symptoms. Most symptoms of diabetes and heart disease and depression and pain and fibromyalgia, these are from the foods we're eating and the stress we're experiencing that we're not managing very well. And by changing your habits, you can change your health, and it happens really fast. I just watched a movie, it was a documentary not too long ago, and it took several people who had type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and they went to a clinic and they put them on a raw food diet where they're eating fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, lots of soaked grains, nuts, seeds, and they took them off all of the junk food, all alcohol, all their medications and stuff. And these type 1 and type 2 diabetics, in 30 days, the type 2 diabetics, all of their symptoms were completely reversed. They went to the doctor, got a clean bill of health. The type 1 diabetics, one of them reduced his insulin intake from 70 units a day down to 5 units a day. Now that is amazing. And what they changed was their diet and their lifestyle. And that's 30 days. And these people have been told by their doctors that they would have to be on medication and they would have to be hospitalized and going through the medical system for the rest of their lives. That's what the doctors had told them. But by changing their food and their diet, 30 days and all their symptoms were reversed. So keep that in mind as we're talking about this, how important this is. If you want to prevent and reverse your chronic illness and lose weight effortlessly, this is the way to do it, is by changing your food. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do today is breakfast cereal. I call it Nutty Krispies. One of the problems with breakfast is they're full of refined grains, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oil, and all of these things are foods, or I call them non-foods, that contribute to disease, and they also make you feel terrible. They zap your energy, they make you feel lethargic, they slow down your brain function, and like I said, they contribute to disease. So I've created these Nutty Krispies, and they come in several different flavors. You can make Cocoa Krispies, Nutty Krispies, Cinnamon Krispies. It's the same basic recipe. You just flavor it up differently. And what it is it's an alternative to cold cereal. So whatever cold cereal you eat in the morning, here it is right here. You have that as an alternative, and then on the mornings where you just got to get up and go and you don't have time to cook, you can make these once, and then they are good for 2, 3, 4 weeks if you keep them in a dry, cool place, and then you have breakfast on the go whenever you want. First of all, all you need is a food processor and a few ingredients. Now, Orson Gigi carries several food processors, so if you don't have one, it's vital for healthy cooking. Go check out Orson Gigi's supply of food processors and see what they've got. You might be able to use your 10% off coupon today. The first ingredient is buckwheat groats. Now, the reason I use buckwheat is because most people are sensitive to wheat. The wheat we have now has been hybridized to contain lots more gluten than it used to in the past. And many people are sensitive to gluten, and it causes myriad of disorders such as celiac, irritable bowel syndrome, gas, It causes fatigue, skin problems. There's lots of things that are related to gluten intolerance. So this is a cereal that doesn't have any gluten in it. It's gluten-free, it's wheat-free, dairy-free, and it's a great food. So these are buckwheat groats. You can get them in the bulk section of a health food store. And what you do is you soak them overnight before you use them, and what that does is it gets them nice and soft, but also when you're using grains, traditional cultures in the past, they didn't just throw their wheat or their grain into the mill, grind it into flour, and make bread. Traditional cultures that used grain in the past, before our industrial food revolution happened, they always soaked their grains before they used them, and this helps you to digest them better. What happens is grains on the outside, in the bran of the grain, there's phytic acid in the bran or the outside of the grain, and also there's other enzyme inhibitors. So what that means is if you just grind up the grain or cook the grain, all of those enzyme inhibitors and phytic acid is going to block your absorption. The phytic acid also binds onto the calcium, magnesium, and other minerals in your system, and it makes it so that not only can you not absorb the nutrients in the food, but you can't absorb other nutrients that are coming from other food. So it's really important to soak your grains for 12 to 24 hours before you use them, and I'm going to use 2 recipes today that show you how to use soaked grains. Now this is for all your quick breads, your regular breads, your cooked cereals in the morning, oatmeal, anything like that. It's really important to soak your grains, and I'm going to show you how to do that. It's going to improve the nutrient content of the food you're eating and also help you to be able to digest better. It also reduces any kind of sensitivity or allergic reaction you're going to have to the grains if you have that type of sensitivity. Buckwheat groats, soaked overnight. This is raw honey, and if you've been to my other classes before, one good natural sweetener you can use instead of sugar or corn syrup is raw local honey. And raw local honey is, as we've talked about before in other classes, it helps with seasonal allergies. It's a superfood, meaning it helps to modulate your immune system. It helps to clear up skin problems. It helps to balance the pH in your stomach and it helps with digestive disorders as well. It's a very healing food, but you have to get it raw, and so the bees are treated correctly. And if you want to learn more about that, I've got some papers and some information that I handed out in previous classes that you can learn about that. Next is cinnamon. Now when you mix cinnamon and honey together, especially raw local honey, that is a healer. In South America, they use that as a tonic to heal people, the mixture of cinnamon and honey. I also have some stevia, some powdered stevia. Now the reason I use a little bit of stevia in this is because when you use honey, it just gives things a honey flavor. So if you want it to be sweet but less of a honey flavor, you can use the stevia to boost the sweetness without giving it more of a honey flavor. There's several kinds of stevia. I use stevia extract because of the process. It's been fermented, and the process makes it so it's more bioavailable and it doesn't have the drawbacks that just regular processed stevia has. I also use some real salt, and we talked about this last time, but real salt hasn't been processed. Normal salt has been processed at a temperature of 1200 degrees, and it makes it so it's not available for your body to absorb it, and it also causes lots of negative reactions. It's very dehydrating, so if you use real salt, it actually builds up the mineral supply in your body, and it doesn't have all the detrimental effects of regular salt. We've got vanilla. Make sure when you buy vanilla that it's only alcohol, water, and vanilla when you read the ingredients. Most vanillas have propylene glycol and corn syrup and all sorts of nasty junk in it that you don't want to be eating, so read your labels carefully. So that's all. You just put those ingredients in the food processor and take it for a spin. Sometimes this takes a little while just to get it ground down. Okay, now I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's not a thin paste. It's still a little bit chunky. It's got some, the particles of buckwheat are still pretty large. It's not ground down into a paste. And then we're going to add pecans. Now, nuts are the same as grains. They have a phytic acid in the outside of the nuts, and so you need to soak them overnight before you use them. So these pecans, you soak them overnight, then just rinse them and drain them. And what that does is it dissolves the phytic acid off of the nuts and makes them, and all the other enzyme inhibitors, and it makes them way more usable. Now, if you put the pecans in at first, it just kind of mushes everything up into a paste. So you want to put the pecans in last, after you've ground everything up, and just pulse it. And all you want to do is get the pecans into nice little chunks so that they're cut up in there but not blended smooth. And as soon as the very last pecan disappears into the sea of dough, you're done. Okay, now there's two ways to make this. I make this as a raw food recipe. Now if you're a raw foodist, or if you want to keep as much of your food raw as possible, you spread this on a dehydrator sheet and then you dehydrate it at less than 115 degrees just until it's dry and crackly like the cereal. Now for those of you that don't have a dehydrator yet, I figured out a plan B so you can still enjoy the cereal. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make it on a baking sheet. And we're going to bake it at a very low temperature. So most people's ovens go down to like 200, 175 or 200 degrees. So what you want to do is pick whatever the lowest temperature your oven will go down to. And you're going to cook it at that. And so it won't be raw, but it will still have the benefits of not processing it at a high temperature. And I'm just using coconut oil here to spread on the pan, and what this does is just make it so it doesn't stick as you're cooking it. If you're doing it in the dehydrator, you don't need to worry about the coconut oil. It won't stick as much. Now when you're cooking this, it's going to take about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on your oven, what type of oven you have, what temperature it's at. So you just have to keep track of it, keep watching it until it's all nice and dry and toasty.
Could you use a parchment sheet?
Yes, you could. I don't know, I haven't tried it, but I imagine that it would work.
Could you use a Vitamixer
Instead of the food processor? You could, just be very careful. The question was, could you use a Vitamix instead of the food processor? And the answer is you could, but with the Vitamix, it blends things up so smooth, you might not get the chunky texture that you're looking for, so you just have to be really careful about not blending it too much, or else you'll end up with a paste instead of a nice textured cereal. I would recommend the food processor if you can do that, but go ahead and experiment around. If you do it in the Vitamix, I just had an idea how it's going to work for you. Make the dough, not the pecans, just the dough, and then chop the pecans by hand and hand mix them in, and don't put those in the blender. That would work.
What is your feeling about agave, using that as a sweetener?
That is a good question. There has been a lot of debate about agave nectar, and according to health experts that I've read up on, agave is, it was first touted as a raw food, as a health food, but it's closer to corn syrup than anything else, so high fructose corn syrup. So what they do is they take the agave plant and they take the root, which is really starchy, and they process it at really high temperatures, and then they put chemicals in it to transform it from one type of sugar into another type of sugar. And so it's chemically processed, it's processed at a really, really high temperature, and the end result is actually a higher fructose content than high fructose corn syrup. So where originally it was advertised as a low glycemic index food and something that could be used for diabetics and as a health food, turns out it's not. Now there is a type of agave nectar that is processed conscientiously, so they don't heat process it and they don't chemical process it. It is quite expensive, but it's true raw agave nectar. And if you can find that, it's clear. Like most agave nectars are tan or a dark brown color. So the true raw agave nectar is going to be clear, and that will be better for you than the highly processed ones, but still there's a lot of debate about if that's a good idea or not. So I used to use a lot of agave nectar, and I've switched over to using more raw local honey. It's more sustainable, it's a better process, and honey is a superfood, and agave is most likely going to be detrimental unless you get the very, very expensive kind. All right. Okay, so that's all you do. You put it on the pan and then pop it in the oven. And that takes about an hour or an hour and a half, and then it turns out looking like this. Now, you can also use, instead of putting in the pecans, you can put in a little bit of raw cocoa powder. You can put in more cinnamon. You can put in different kinds of nuts. You can put in a little bit of dried fruits. You can vary, you can make whatever. Here's what I do. This is why I'm called Cafe Janae. I would go to the store or go to restaurants and find something that I liked that wasn't very healthy, and then I would figure out how to make the healthy version of that recipe. So this is my version of whatever kind of cereal that I found in the store. So if I see like a cranberry almond granola at the store, I'll go home and try to figure out how to make it a healthy style. So use what you see out there in the grocery store and at restaurants as your inspiration, and you can be really flexible with this. So take the base recipe and then throw in whatever sounds good, try it out, and it'll probably turn out great. Yes?
I love the dried bananas. You can buy in big bins, but I've noticed the ingredients are pretty bad.
Yes.
Any suggestions on how to get dried bananas?
Do you have a dehydrator? No. So I'd recommend getting a dehydrator. They're invaluable for not only doing dried fruit and dried produce, but also for making cereals and crackers and things like that. Orsingigi has a couple dehydrators you can choose from. There's also a dehydrator that I use called the Excalibur. So what I do for bananas is when I go to the store, when they have those bins full of the little brown bananas that are 25 cents a pound, and I always get those because they're really cheap. You take them home, you split them open, and if you put your thumb down the middle of the banana, it splits it into 3 sections. Throw those on the dehydrator trays and put them in the dehydrator, and they turn out like candy. Every time I make those, they're gone in minutes. People can't stay away from them. So that's what I do for dried bananas. The ones you see at the store have probably been fried or processed with sulfur. So the best way, the answer is always make it at home. That's the healthy way to do things, is to make it at home. So dried bananas are easy. If I go to the store and get a big box of super ripe bananas for cheap, it takes 20 minutes to put them on the dehydrator trays, and then by the next day you have a yummy bowl of treats. Okay? Yes?
Do you dip them in lemon juice or anything?
If you dehydrate them straight away instead of if you cut the bananas, they go way darker than if you split them down the middle. So if you do the thing where I told you to split your thumb so it goes into 3 sections, they don't go as dark. So they're a lot lighter that way. I found with apples and that type of fruit, you can dip them in lemon or citric acid, but with bananas, it doesn't work that well. What we're going to do next is pancakes. Now I do this because every time I make this recipe, people go wild over it. It tastes like oatmeal cookies, and it's pancakes, and it's also made from soaked whole grains and lots of whole foods. So I'm sure you're going to love this because this is one of the favorites of my audiences. We're going to start out with rolled oats. Now remember, I told you when you're using whole grains, it's so important to use soaked whole grains. So I took rolled oats and some whole spelt flour, and I soaked them overnight in water with a little bit of vinegar. Now when you're soaking your grains, if you put a little bit of acid into the soak water, like raw vinegar or lemon juice, it helps to dissolve the phytic acid and all the enzyme inhibitors, and it also helps to bring out the nutrients of the grain. So this is rolled oats and spelt flour that have been soaked overnight in water and a tablespoon of vinegar. Yeah, so you've got 2 cups of rolled oats and a half a cup of spelt flour and 2 cups of water and a tablespoon of vinegar. I've been perusing different websites of healthy recipes just to see what else is out there, and I'm really disappointed. Like, I have not found a site yet that doesn't tell you that you have to put in white flour with your whole grain products. So if they're making whole wheat bread, they use half whole grain and half white flour. If they're making pancakes, they use half whole grain and half white flour. And the myth out there is that if you're going to get the right texture and the right flavor, you have to add in refined white flour. And it's just not true. All of my recipes are made out of 100% whole grain, no white flour, no processed flour. It's all soaked and whole. And please don't believe the myth that you have to add in white flour to make your stuff taste good, because this is really easy to use whole grains. Yes?
When you're soaking this, so you're not draining it and putting anything else to it, because
Nope, it's just the base for your batter. Now, if you're just soaking grains, like let's say you're making something else where you don't want it to be a batter, then you can soak it, dump off the water, rinse it, and then use the grains if you don't want to make a batter. But if you're making a batter, you can just leave it in there. Okay, so next we're just going to put in a little bit of, we're going to put in a little bit of honey. Now, the trick to honey with pancakes is if you put in too much honey, they're going to get really, the more sugar that's in there, sugar burns really easily. Sugar in the broad sense of sweet things burns super easily. So if you put in too much honey or sweetener, your pancakes are going to get really dark and they're going to burn. So make sure that you don't put in too much honey, just enough to make it sweet.
Is that about a tablespoon?
That is 2 tablespoons of honey and a 1/4 cup of oil. Now, when you're choosing an oil, when you're cooking with an oil, a lot of people advocate for using olive oil for everything. The problem with olive oil is it has a very, if you're using the extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, like is what's going to be the best for you, it has a very low smoking point. So whenever you're using oils, be aware of their smoking point. Once an oil starts to smoke, it changes the molecular structure of the oil and it becomes carcinogenic, which means it starts to cause cancer. So make sure that when you're using an oil and you're cooking with an oil, it's got to be an oil that you can use at high temperatures without it reaching its smoking point, or else even if you choose a healthy oil, it's going to be unhealthy by the time you heat it up. So olive oil, you need it cold pressed and non-processed, but also you can't heat it up. You can warm it, but you can't heat it. Don't cook with olive oil. So good options for cooking oils is coconut oil. Make sure that's also, raw and cold pressed. But with coconut oil, because it's a saturated fat and it's a medium chain triglyceride, it's got a very high smoking point. So if you want to, fry something or saute something or cook, coconut oil is a really good option for that because you can raise it to high temperatures. The other thing, what I'm using right now, is grapeseed oil, and you have to read the bottle, but generally, grapeseed oil is also processed, minimally processed, but it also has a high smoking point, so you can use it for cooking. Use walnut oils, almond oil, nut oils, olive oil. Only use those for salad dressings and things that you're not going to cook. All right, and then for our spices, we've got some cinnamon. I've got like a tablespoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of baking powder, teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Yes?
I have a question. Do you use real salt or are you using...
I use real salt with everything. So I use 2 different kinds of salt, either Celtic sea salt, which is kind of a gray salt, or real salt, which is pink. The thing when you're choosing a salt is it needs to be minimally processed and it also needs to have color to it. So if it's just a plain white salt, all the minerals and all the healthy stuff has been processed out of it. So find a salt that's colored some way. Okay? Okay, so what they're passing out for samples right now is the Nutty Krispies and almond milk. Now, online I have a cooking show that teaches you how to make this almond milk, which is why I didn't make it for the class today. I just wanted you to taste it because it's so delicious. You're going to love it. If you get on YouTube and look up Cafe Janae, that's my channel. I've got 10 cooking shows up that teach you how to make different things, and one of them is the almond milk. So you've got a little Nutty Crispy there and some almond milk to try. I find that if I just let people taste my stuff, they fall in love with it, and then they want to start eating healthy. And the comment I've got, most of all, is if food tastes this good, why should we eat any other way? And so I'm going to make that my motto, you know, with food this good, why eat any other way? And remember that for the holidays, because you can make food that tastes just as good as your regular Thanksgiving food or even better, and it's going to be way healthier for you. So all you do is spoon this onto the griddle here, just like regular pancakes. And what happens is it turns into a yummy cookie-like concoction. Now, one of the problems with breakfast that we discussed a little bit earlier, what stops people from eating breakfast? They're in a hurry. They don't have time to cook. They don't have time to, you know, make something. They don't have time to sit down and eat. And the beautiful things about these pancakes is that you can make them ahead of time, make several batches. I find that it takes just as long to make 3 or 4 batches as it takes to make one, generally speaking. And I make a whole bunch of these pancakes, and then I freeze them, and then when I'm ready for a quick breakfast, you just put them in the toaster or in the toaster oven, and you've got a meal in less than 2 minutes. So I would oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot the raisins. How can you have oatmeal cookies without raisins? So I've got some white raisins. You can put black raisins in there as well, whatever kind you want, and just mix those babies in there after you've mixed up the batter. And the raisins just give them an extra little sweet punch. A lot of people drink soy milk because that's what everyone says. That's what the advertising is telling you, that soy milk's good for you. In fact, soy products in general are some of the worst things you can do for your body. They have phytoestrogens in them, which is plant estrogens, and estrogen is what modulates cancers. And so when you're eating foods that have a lot of phytoestrogens in them, or other estrogens like dairy and beef, that type of stuff, what happens is you're increasing your risk of cancer and other diseases just by increasing the amount of phytoestrogens you're eating. Also, with soy, remember how I was talking about the phytic acid in grains? Soy has the highest content of phytic acid of any of the grains or seeds or nuts. And the thing with soy is you can't dissolve the phytic acid and get rid of it by soaking it or by cooking it. A lot of other things, if you soak it or cook it, it gets rid of the phytic acid. Not so with soy. The only way you can get rid of the phytic acid and the enzyme inhibitors in soy is to ferment it. So if you're going to eat soy products, make sure it's only fermented soy products. And these are things like tamari, tempeh, miso, those type of fermented soy products. If you're eating non-fermented soy, it's going to be detrimental to your digestive system. It's going to be detrimental to your hormones. It's going to be detrimental as far as cancer prevention. Yes?
I have 2 Asian daughters, and they love not the soy milk that I buy in the grocery store, but at the Asian market, it's their gochujang. Is that safe?
If it's not fermented, generally speaking, soy products, if they're not fermented, they're not safe. Okay. Now, as far as a brand that I recommend, you have to read the labels. So I've looked at almond milks, nut milks, rice milks. I've looked at everything out on the market just for something easy. The only thing I've found that doesn't have hydrogenated oils or refined sugars or something like that in it is the Rice Stream brand. That's the only brand that I've found. And if you get the original or the vanilla, I've found that that's the best of your options. It's still not your best bet overall. It's best if you make it yourself, but if you can't make it yourself, Rice Stream, either original or vanilla, is the best option. The other flavors, read the ingredients carefully, because I haven't checked it in a while, but in the past the other flavors have had sugars and oils in them that aren't good for you. Okay? Yes? Rice milk? Yeah, that's what I was just talking about, the Rice Stream. Are you talking about homemade rice milk or? No. Okay, so the answer is no soy. Soy is bad for you. If you're gonna have a milk, use Rice Stream. Or if you can find another brand that doesn't have hydrogenated oils and such in them, then great. That's the only one I've found that doesn't have junk in it.
Is there a best almond milk?
I have not found one. I've looked everywhere for an almond milk that doesn't have junk in it, and I haven't found one, and that's why I make my own. Now, the good news about almond milk, this stuff that I make, did you guys like that? What do you think? Yeah, it's good? That almond milk, it took me less than 5 minutes to make it. You soak your almonds, you put them in the blender, blend it up, you put it through a little almond milk cloth, and then you add in a little bit of honey and coconut oil and salt and vanilla, and you're done. So the first time you make it, it takes a little while, but subsequent times after you figure out how to make it, it really takes 5 minutes. And I make like a gallon at a time, stick it in the fridge, and so that's 5 minutes, and I have 3 or 4 or 5 days worth of almond milk in the fridge.
What's the product? You know, if you go to Costco and you buy a big bag of raw almonds,
Uh-huh.
how much milk can you expect to get from that?
So when I make almond milk, it's generally 1 cup of almonds to 8 cups of water. So a cup of almonds will make about a half a gallon of almond milk.
Do you usually use raw almonds?
Yes, if you're going to be eating nuts or seeds, they need to be raw. Once you cook them or process them, or roast them or salt them, then the oils are very delicate in nuts. So the oils get rancid, and then the nuts aren't good for you anymore. So any nuts and seeds you eat need to be raw and soaked. Yes?
How do you use your pulp from the almonds when you're making your milk?
I have several recipes for that. You can use it to make granola. You can use it to make cookies. You can use it to make, that's usually what I use it in, is granola and cookies. So I save it. Once you get done with your almond milk, I take the pulp and I put it in a Ziploc bag in the freezer, and I save it till I have enough to make granola or cookies or something, and then you can pull it out of the freezer and make something out of that. And you can even add it to like these Cocoa Crisp or the Nutty Krispies. Like that's something that you could totally just add a couple cups of almond pulp to, and it increases the fiber, it increases the nutrient value, and it's pretty delicious. So that's how I use it. Make sure you freeze it, because the almond pulp only lasts for a day or 2 before it goes bad, so you got to freeze it. Yes, I saw a question in the back.
Dehydrating the pulp, is that work?
Yes, you can dehydrate the pulp and make it into flour. So that it just turns it into almond flour, and there's quite a few recipes that call for almond flour. So you can totally do that. No.
I'm a little bit confused. You mentioned the brand rice stream for a milk.
Uh-huh.
Is that the almond milk?
No, it's rice milk. The answer was I have not found an almond milk that doesn't have junk in it. Okay.
Same with soy.
Yes, and soy, unless it's fermented, it's not a good idea to eat any soy product unless it's fermented, and there are no fermented soy milks. So I would recommend, if you're going to do almond milk, make it yourself. If you're going to do rice milk, you can either make it yourself or use the Rice Stream brand. If you want to prevent disease and promote health, it's important to get at least 50% of all of your daily intake. So 50% of everything you eat needs to be from raw fruits and vegetables. And so when I was growing up, these pancakes, my mom used to make these pancakes and then feed them to us with applesauce. And so I really like that idea. The applesauce is delicious, but if you want to be getting your raw fruits and vegetables in, cooked applesauce isn't going to be doing it. So I figured out a way to make a really yummy raw applesauce that you can put with these pancakes, and it's super tasty. So let me just get this set up real quick.
How do you wean your children off the syrup? I mean, I can eat a pancake like that plain, and I would love it, but my children are just used to dunking syrup.
Yes, so I have 2 answers for that. The first answer is you can get whole maple syrup that's not processed, not refined. It's got all the minerals and vitamins still
So I am okay because I have that.
So if you get the grade B maple syrup, that's one option. Another option is when your samples come out, I have mixed together coconut oil and honey, and I just warmed them, mixed them up together to make kind of like a honey butter, and we put that on top, and that's a superfood. Coconut oil and honey. Now with your raw honey, you don't ever want to cook. Sometimes you cook honey. If you cook your honey, it destroys a lot of the nutrients in it. It's still better than using sugar or other sweeteners, but if there's any way to preserve the honey by not cooking it, try to do that. So when I did it, you just warm it up enough so the honey and the coconut oil melts together, but you don't want to cook it. And then we just put it in a little syrup bottle and use that. Coconut oil is really high in lauric acid, which is an antifungal, and an antiviral and an antibacterial. So when you're eating coconut oil that hasn't been processed, you're improving your immune system. It also helps to it helps you to lose weight, because coconut oil is a medium chain triglyceride, which means when you eat it, instead of the fat going into your blood and just floating around in your blood and being stored as fat in your body, this type of fat, the medium chain triglycerides, are used up right away. So it gives you immediate energy. It's not stored as fat. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and there's no cholesterol in it. So coconut oil is amazing. It's a superfood. So when you're mixing the honey and the coconut oil together, it's just really power-packed sweetener. Yes?
What's the proportion of the honey to the...
I just do equal parts of each. And if you want to put a little sprinkle of salt in there, it just adds a little oomph to it. So for the raw applesauce... somebody asked a question. Did I answer that question? Oh, if I want to melt the coconut oil, what do I do? It melts at 76 degrees, so all you do is you run a little bit of warm water in a bowl, stick it in the, like put it in a container, stick the container in the warm water, and that's all you have to do. And the same with the honey. The honey melts at about 80 or 85 degrees, so warm water will melt it just fine. You don't need to cook it. Okay, now I put, because I was traveling with these apples, I put a little bit of citric acid in the water, and what that does is it just makes it so the apples don't oxidize and they don't turn brown. Okay, so we've got apples, whatever is local and in season is best. And because these are sour apples, these are Granny Smiths, and so if you're using a sweeter apple, you don't have to put any sweetener in it. All you do is put the apples in there and blend. But because these are Granny Smith apples, they're a little bit tart, so I put like a tablespoon or two of honey in there. And then also, because I'm making it for this class, if you're going to eat it right away, it doesn't matter. But because I'm making it for the class and it's going to sit out in the air, it might oxidize. So if you don't want it to oxidize and turn brown, and you want it to keep its color, this is citric acid, and it's just made from lemons. I just put like a teaspoon or so of citric acid in there, and then what it does is it makes it so your applesauce doesn't turn brown and oxidize. Yes. It'll keep longer without going brown. But you have to refrigerate it just like with any other fresh fruit product. All right, let's see how this goes. All right, look at that. Now, isn't that pretty? Most people, when they eat applesauce, it's been cooked, it's been processed, it's been peeled. Now, did you notice I left the peels on these apples? You don't have to peel them. All you did is take the core out. Isn't that easy? And most people don't know that most of the nutrition of the apple is right under the peel. That's where all your nutrition comes from. So if you peel your apples before you make applesauce or apple pie or whatever, you're getting rid of most of the nutrition that is in that apple. And also if you cook it, you're getting rid of most of the nutrition. So this is preserving all of the nutrition in the apple by using the peel and by keeping it raw. So we've got raw applesauce and pancakes. Now this is amazing because it's almost an instant meal. Like, the pancakes you can make ahead of time, throw them in the toaster. The applesauce, all it takes is long enough for you to core the apples, throw it in the blender, and blend it up. And you can seriously make this meal. If you pre-cook the pancakes, you can make this meal in less than 5 minutes. And there's really no excuse not to eat breakfast if you can have something that's that fast. With the almond krispies or the nutty krispies and the milk, you can also make those ahead of time, and it's another 5-minute meal. So the excuse of not having enough time to eat breakfast, if you just plan ahead a little bit, there's no reason why you can't have easy and quick breakfast. All right. Oh, you wanted to? Oh, thank you. You can clap. Go ahead. And this is for anybody that has babies. You can make baby food this exact same way. When the baby food in the jars that you get at the store, it's been peeled, it's been processed, it's been cooked, it's had stuff put in it. All you have to do is the same thing. Take your vegetables or your fruits, just take them whole, wash them, chop them, core them, keep the skins on, put them in the blender, blend them up like this, and then what works really well is if you put it into little ice cube trays. So put the puree in ice cube trays, and then take the ice cube trays, put all the little ice cubes of this stuff in a Ziploc bag, keep that in your freezer, and then it's the perfect amount to take out 1 or 2 of the little ice cubes of beans or peas or baby food or yams or applesauce or whatever, and it keeps it preserved, and you can just take out 1 or 2 servings at a time for your baby, and that is a million times more healthy than the baby food that you're going to get at the store. So it can be used as adult food or baby food. All right. You just have to look around. Try health food stores are the best place to get organic produce. So go to whatever health food store is closest to you. Also, a lot of times organic produce is shipped in from South America and other places, Mexico. Even if your produce is organic and it's top quality, if it's been shipped from those places, that means it's old, it's been sitting around for a while. Once it crosses the border, I didn't know this until recently, but any produce that crosses the U.S. border gets irradiated. Like, it's a law. You can't have produce crossing the border without irradiating it. And so what that means is all of our food that is coming from out of the country is being irradiated. So when I have to make a choice between organic that comes from out of the country or local produce that comes from down the road, but it's not organic, it's oftentimes best to choose your local stuff that's down the road that's not organic, just because it's close, it's fresh, it's new, and it hasn't been irradiated.
A lot of the vendors at the farmer's market, though,
And California is local compared to Mexico or South America, so keep that in mind as well. Also, it's not irradiated as it crosses the state border, only as it crosses the U.S. border. If you're worried about the pesticides or stuff on your fruits and vegetables, all you do is take raw apple cider vinegar. I use Bragg's brand, and you fill up a bowl with however much water you need and some apple cider vinegar, and you soak your fruits and vegetables in that, and what that does is it dissolves all the waxes, it dissolves all the pesticide residues, and it dissolves any impurities that are on the outside of the fruit, and then you just rinse them off, and that takes care of a lot of the pesticide residue that you worry about with non-organic produce.
unless it's systemic and in the carrot itself.
Right, and then you have to. It's a decision you have to make. If you have to choose between something that's irradiated and weeks old because it's coming from South America, or something that is, commercially grown and local and fresher and not irradiated. It's neither choice is what we want, obviously, but you just have to choose from the options that are available. So keep all that in mind as you're making your choices for produce. Yes.
The raw apple cider vinegar is fairly expensive. How do you feel about, for the cleaning of your fruits and vegetables, just using like the inexpensive vinegars?
Yeah, it's a good second choice. I wouldn't eat them. Once vinegars have been distilled, all their health properties are gone. So I wouldn't use those type of vinegars for eating, but for cleaning, they work fine. All right, any other questions? Yes. Yes, so you can buy that in bulk at a health food store. And just make sure when you're buying your citric acid, that's another thing that they make out of corn sometimes. So make sure it's non-GMO. Make sure that, just read the label, find out where it came from before you buy it. Be really careful. Yes?
I'm kind of newer to the GMO problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that labels are not required to say that they use GMO corn.
Mm-hmm.
So if the label says it's using corn, should I just say that's
Assume that it is.
Yeah.
So the way you know that it's not is if it has a big non-GMO sticker on the front. Otherwise, just assume that it is.
What is GMO?
Genetically modified organism. Mm-hmm. And so that means when they take fruits, vegetables, produce, whatever, and they splice the genes and they put in genes from other places to make them pest resistant or whatever their purpose is. Okay. So I've made up this little list for you of tips to help get your breakfast in. Did you guys know that they've done studies, people that eat breakfast every day have a lower body mass index than people that don't eat breakfast. People that eat breakfast every day can lose weight easier than people that don't eat breakfast. They have better concentration. When they tested students who ate breakfast and who didn't eat breakfast, they had better cognitive function, better test scores. People that eat breakfast, they eat more during the daytime and less during the nighttime, which also helps with weight loss. They have less cravings for sugars and fats, and they eat less fats. Did you know that when you eat at night, the food, instead of being used up as energy, it's stored as glycogen, and then the glycogen is stored as fat. So when you eat at night, it makes you fat. Easier than if you eat in the morning. So the more you eat in the morning, the less you're going to eat later at night. It's going to help with weight loss. And also, eating in the morning, eating breakfast, it jumpstarts your metabolism. And so instead of your metabolism being really sluggish throughout the day, you get it going in the morning, and it helps you to burn more calories through the day and be more energetic. So there's many, many, many benefits to eating breakfast, as long as you're not eating junk food for breakfast and as long as you're eating whole and healthy foods. Let's just go really quick over the list for people that haven't been here in the past of the junk foods that I'm talking about. Any kind of processed grain, any kind of processed sugar, any kind of processed oil. That means any of your vegetable oils, any of your hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. Animal products that have been factory farmed are considered non-foods. They're detrimental to your health. So if you're eating animal products, they need to be grass-fed, organic. Make sure there's no hormones or pesticides or antibiotics that are used, and definitely grass-fed. So that's for your eggs, for your dairy, for your meat. Also, scientists have discovered that if you eat more than 10% of your total calorie intake per day of animal products, it drastically increases your risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and lots of other chronic illnesses. So if you are going to be eating animal products, make sure that they're grass-fed, organic, no chemicals or hormones used, and that it's less than 10% of your daily calorie intake. So just to give you a little snapshot of what 10% of your daily calorie intake means, that means if you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, you get less than 200 calories. So that's for the guys, if you go by the typical USDA recommendations. So for guys, that's less than 200 calories of animal products. That's counting meat, eggs, cheese, dairy, chicken, fish, those are all animal products. 200 calories, and for women it's about 150 calories. So that's like a little piece of animal product like the size of a deck of cards of meat, or an ounce of cheese, or some equivalent of that. So just keep that in mind. As soon as you go over that 10% of your daily calorie intake, your disease risk goes way up. And also your symptomology of like fibromyalgia, pain, inflammation, that kind of stuff goes up drastically as soon as you cross that threshold of 10%. Under 10%, the studies have shown that it doesn't really make a difference as long as you stay under 10%. But once you cross that threshold, it makes a big difference. Okay, so I've made this little paper for you guys just to give you some ideas of how to make breakfast work for you and your family. This is important for adults, kids, everybody. First thing that most people don't do is they don't drink enough water. People are so dehydrated, not only because they're not drinking enough, but because all of the foods they're eating are very dehydrating. Sugar and salt, all these processed foods dry you out. If you want to detoxify and lose weight and get rid of your chronic illness symptoms, you've got to be hydrated. So I recommend, this is what I do. I have a jar of water, like a quart jar of water, sitting on my nightstand, and as soon as I wake up in the morning, I drink as much as I can, and then lay back, push snooze, and then by the time your snooze alarm goes up, you're ready to go, and you got to go to the bathroom anyway, so it helps to wake you up, and also it gets you drinking a good amount of water first thing in the morning. Now, if you add a little bit of fresh lemon to the water, or if you make an herbal tea, that also benefits your system by alkalizing your system and in helping to kind of get the pump primed for the rest of the day. Getting hydrated first thing in the morning is very beneficial, and if you Have it right on your nightstand, then you'll have enough time between when you wake up and when you eat for the water to digest. You want to wait at least a half hour before you eat anything after you drink your water, and that's going to be best for you. Eat breakfast every morning. No more animal products, we went over that. Make your meals ahead of time, so I'm giving you lots of ideas of how to make stuff ahead of time so you can just pull it out of the fridge or pull it out of the freezer and have it ready to go. Have 5-minute recipes handy. Now this next recipe I'm going to do is smoothies, and this is one of those 5-minute recipes. So let's say you don't have anything pre-made and you've got 5 minutes. Anybody can make 5 minutes in the morning to make something. Smoothies are a great way to go. There's a bunch of other 5-minute recipes where you can just have the recipes in your head or in a little card deck, and you can just say, okay, I've got 5 minutes, what can I do in 5 minutes? And make that your commitment to your body and your life and your breakfast to have those 5-minute recipes. And if you donate $20, I'll have that book of recipes for you, and there's all the recipes in there are either recipes you can make ahead of time or 5-minute recipes that you can make really quick in the morning. If you're going to use grains, seeds, or nuts, make sure they're sprouted or soaked ahead of time. At least 50% of all of your meals should be fresh fruits and vegetables. And eat leafy greens for breakfast. Did you know that fresh leafy greens are the most effective food for reducing cancer risk and pain and inflammation, and for giving you the most nutritionally dense food you can have during your day? So if you can have your fresh leafy greens every meal of the day, that is going to benefit your health immensely. And I'm going to show you how to put fresh leafy greens in your smoothies to make that happen. And also, if you have fresh fruit juice in the morning, that's a good way to get lots of servings of fruits and vegetables into your day. And what I mean by fresh fruit and vegetable juice is if you squeeze it yourself. So if you have a juicer, and it's not something you can go to the store and buy. So this is something, if you have a juicer, you can get 10 or 15 servings of fruits and vegetables in one juice in the morning if you have a juicer. So keep that in mind, and it's definitely beneficial to your health. Okay, I've got 2 smoothies here today. Now, most people, when I say green smoothies or have greens with your smoothies, the reaction I get is like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's disgusting. So I just want to make you some samples and show you that it can be really easy and really delicious. And you can use, for your greens, you can use any type of greens. So romaine lettuce, spinach, kale. I find that romaine lettuce is like the least pungent of a taste, so you can put that in your smoothie without noticing it as much. Spinach is also a really mild flavored green that you can put in your smoothie, and I was going to bring some today, and somehow that got lost during the trip, so we're going to use romaine today. And if kale and chard they have a higher nutrition density, meaning they have more nutrition per calorie of green, but they have a really, really strong flavor. So a lot of times doesn't go well if you put those in smoothies. It works well for like a savory dish in the evening instead of a breakfast meal.
If I use kale or chard, I've just found I have to do it with pineapple.
Yeah.
And if I do pineapple, they taste delicious.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't do pineapple and use one of those 2 greens, then it's just too bitter.
Yes.
So that's just
Great. Yeah, thank you for that comment. Pineapple is a good way to cut the flavor. Yeah.
Vinegar and honey is really good too.
Very good. Mm-hmm.
With some onions, just kind of salty.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, the savory dishes. She said vinegar and honey and with some onions with the kale and the chard. That's what I was talking about, the savory dish. Like if you can cook it with a little bit of garlic or a little bit of coconut oil, that really helps to make it so it's more palatable. And mostly I was talking about smoothies, but yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. So the first one we're going to make here is, okay, I'm here. All right. So we're just going to do a banana smoothie, a banana chocolate smoothie. So I've frozen some bananas, and that's something else you can do with those bananas that you get at the store for cheap that are really inexpensive and ripe. I'm going to put in some raw cocoa powder. Now, cocoa powder, along with the other foods we're talking about in this class, It's really important to get raw cocoa powder that hasn't been processed. And when you get the non-processed cocoa powder, this is also a superfood, meaning the nutrition per calorie is higher than most other foods you're going to eat. So if you compare raw cocoa powder, let's say with broccoli, it's actually got more nutrition, more vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and that type of stuff in the raw cocoa powder than even some of your vegetables. So putting raw cocoa powder in your smoothies in the morning is a good way to kind of like get you going, get your metabolism going, and also get lots of nutrition. A lot of people ask, well, if I'm not eating all the animal products I'm used to eating, how do I get protein? And one good source of protein is hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are almost a complete protein. They have almost all the amino acids you need in there. They're the most complete protein that you can get in a plant food. And they have kind of a nutty flavor to them, so I usually mix them with bananas and chocolate and things that the nutty flavor will go well with. And they're also really soft, so you can blend them up without noticing very well. When I mention to people that they can put hemp seeds in their smoothies or whatever, they usually just go like this and go like, okay, there's my hemp seeds for the day. If this is going to be your protein source for the day, you need to put enough in. So I usually use at least a 1/4 cup of hemp seeds in my smoothie, and that will give you a solid dose of protein that will it will mitigate any sugar you put in there. When you mix protein and fat with your sugars, meaning your bananas and your honey and that type of stuff, the protein and the fat helps to slow down the release of insulin and slow down the way that the sugar is released. So by putting the protein and the fat in there, it helps to make you feel full longer, it helps to satiate you, gives you the protein, and it also helps to like level out your blood sugar levels if that's a problem for you. Okay, and I'm also, because raw cocoa powder is pretty bitter compared to, like, if you're a milk chocolate eater, you're going to taste the raw cocoa powder and think, But if you like dark chocolate or the 70% chocolate, this is what it's going to taste like. So usually when I put cocoa powder in, you either have to put a lot of ripe bananas in or maybe a teaspoon or so of honey, and that'll just help to cut the bitterness of the raw cocoa powder. And also when you mix the superfoods of cocoa powder and raw honey, that is an amazing health tonic. I also put in a little bit of coconut oil, and what this does is add that healthy fat that has the lauric acid content. Coconut oil actually helps you to utilize any vitamin E that's in your recipe a lot better. So there's lots of health benefits associated with that, as well as it makes the milkshake or the smoothie kind of creamy and more dense and more filling. And then this is rice milk that I'm using, but usually I use almond milk in here. Oh, sorry, say that again?
How much is coconut milk and almond milk? Coconut oil and almond milk.
Okay, with smoothies, here's how it goes. You put in how much fruit you've got, and then you put in a sprinkle of cocoa powder and stuff, and then you just put in enough to make it mix. So I put in maybe a 1/2 cup or 3/4 of a cup, but it depends. If you have a lot of frozen bananas and they're frozen hard, you're going to have to put in more liquid than if you've got just ripe bananas that aren't frozen. So just put some in. The beautiful thing about smoothies is you really can't mess them up. So just put what you think in, and then taste it, and then revise your plan. And with smoothies, it's all about using what you have in your kitchen and just making something really fast. So I don't like to, when people ask me, well, how do you make smoothies? I don't like to give them a recipe like 1 cup of this and 2 cups of this and a teaspoon of this, because then it's really stressful and like, oh, I don't have that. I got to go to the store for that. That's not what smoothies are about. Smoothies are about finding what's in your cupboard, throwing it in the blender, tasting it, adding whatever you need to make it taste good, and that's what smoothies are about. So just play with it and you'll get used to it, and then it'll be fun because then you can be really creative in the kitchen and make something different every time. Okay, so that made the base, and then we're going to throw in some greens. One moment. Forgot vanilla. Whenever you use chocolate and honey and bananas, vanilla goes really well together with that. All right, now here's how we use the greens. Now, ideally speaking, you want to get at least a pound of dark leafy greens into your diet every day. And a lot of people ask me, well, how the heck am I supposed to do that? If you put a little bit of greens in your smoothie in the morning, you have a salad at lunch, and you have a salad at dinner, that's easy. You can get a pound of greens, dark leafy greens, into your diet every day. It's just a matter of being strategic about it and remembering that you have to do that, and then need more hands here. All right. So if I was just having the chocolate banana smoothie, this would be perfect, and I just pour it out and taste and drink it like this. Since I'm going to put some greens in, I'm going to add a little bit more liquid here. I'm going to throw in some greens. And actually, when I do the chocolate recipe, you can put in spinach and you don't even notice the flavor, just because the chocolate is such a dense flavor. Okay, the beautiful thing about a Vitamix is it'll blend anything up into a liquid. So it doesn't matter what you put in there, it's going to come out nice and creamy when you're done. All right, I'm just going to taste this because you guys are going to have this as samples, and I want to make sure it's good. One moment. So here we go. You can't even taste the greens in there. Okay, it's really good. It tastes nutty, like the hemp seeds. You got the banana, you got the chocolate. It's really tasty. So Perry's going to take this around and let you guys taste that.
Do you soak seeds?
Hemp seeds you don't have to soak, so it depends on which seeds. So pumpkin seeds, yes. Sunflower seeds, yes. Sesame seeds, it's a toss-up. Hemp seeds you don't have to. Pardon?
I don't think you like crunchy almonds.
Oh yes. So if you have a dehydrator, what you do is you soak your almonds, rinse them, and then you put them in the dehydrator and just dry them until they're crunchy again. And then you've dissolved all the enzyme inhibitors and phytic acid off of them. If you don't have a dehydrator, the second best option is to soak them and then put them in your oven at the very lowest temperature on a baking sheet and just dry them out that way. They'll last a lot longer and they'll be better for you if you can dehydrate them. So I highly recommend dehydrator first, if not just whatever's the lowest temperature in your oven, and that'll make them nice and crispy. Another thing you can do with your nuts and almonds after you soak them is after they're done soaking, while they're still a little bit damp, just mix in a tiny bit of honey and a tiny bit of salt and cinnamon, whatever flavor you want to do. Mix it in, and then when you dry them, they turn out into candied nuts. And if you think crunchy almonds by themselves are delicious, the candied nuts are even better. And it's just a matter of just dumping in a little tiny bit of honey and cinnamon and salt, and it makes them really, really fabulous. Yes?
I soaked cashews and rinsed them, but I had more than I was going to use for a recipe. So I put them in the refrigerator. How long are they going to be good for? Or
A day or two.
Okay.
You can freeze them if you want to do that. And the freezing will mess up the texture a little bit, so if you're going to blend them or something, it doesn't matter. But yeah, freezing works better. Nuts, after you soak them, a day or two in the fridge. But then once you dry them or toast them, then they'll last for a week or two. Okay. So what we're gonna do next is a berry smoothie with a different source of protein in there. So I've got a frozen mixed berries. And we can just throw our greens in there right now. Okay. And okay, so we've got frozen berries, your greens, And I've put macadamia nuts in here because people ask me, well, how do you make your stuff creamy? Like if more normally people put yogurt into their smoothies or milk or scoop of ice cream, something like that. And this is a way to make your smoothie really creamy, as if you're putting ice cream or yogurt or some dairy in there. And also it adds a lot of protein. Macadamia nuts have a really good profile for your healthy oils. So I just put some macadamia nuts in there. And then here's some chia seeds. Now, chia seeds are the same things you put on those little chia pets, and it grows hair out of the little chia pets. But what most people don't know about the beauty of chia seeds is that athletes that are on raw food and they need protein to build their muscles, they use chia seeds as their main source of protein for bodybuilding and weightlifting and for their athletic stuff. So chia seeds have a really, really amazing amino acid profile. They've got full spectrum amino acids in there. They also have a lot of omega-3 oils in them, which are really good for your heart and your...
Did you soak those?
Yes, so what you have to do with chia seeds is they will soak up, I think it's 25 times their weight in water. So with chia seeds, if you just eat them dry or put them in your smoothie dry, they're just going to soak up any moisture that's available, whether it's in your intestines or your stomach or your smoothie. So what you need to do before you use chia seeds is you soak them in 1 part chia seeds and then 4, 5, 6 parts of water, and you soak that for 15 minutes, stir it or shake it as it's soaking, and it turns into a gel like that. And then you use that gel in your recipes. So make sure you don't eat your chia seeds dry. Soak them first, make them into the gel, and then you can use them in anything. Now, because the berries are kind of tart, like for instance, if this was a recipe with peaches, I wouldn't have to put honey in because peaches are really sweet. But because there's like raspberries and stuff in there that are kind of tart, I'm going to add a little bit of extra sweetener in there. It's a teaspoon of honey. I think most people find that as they do these green smoothies more often, a couple things happen. They don't need stuff to be as sweet, so our taste buds have been conditioned to like really sweet, really salty, really fatty foods. And as you start eating healthier, you'll find that you just don't need that anymore. So you'll find that maybe at the beginning you'll need to add in more honey and more sweet stuff and less greens because you're not used to the flavor. But as you're making these smoothies every day or as often as you can, you'll find that you can put in more greens and you don't mind the flavor so much, and you can put in less sweetener and it tastes just as good for you, or just as good to you. So just go by your taste, go by what your body is asking for. If you need to add in a little extra sweetener, great. But just know that as you alkalize your body, as you start eating healthier, as you're detoxifying all that crap you've been eating for years out of your body, your tastes are going to change and you're going to be satisfied with healthier, less sweet, less salty, less fatty foods. And you're going to be able to tolerate the flavor of grains and that type of stuff a little bit better. Now this is just 100% juice. You just get it at the health food store. Make sure there's no additives or anything in there. The only thing in here is water and 100% fruit juice. If you have a juicer and you juice, it's going to be even better for you if you can put your homemade juice in there. Make sure that when you buy juice, you're not buying juice cocktail. Read the ingredients really carefully. Make sure there's no flavor additives or color additives or flavor enhancers. Here's something that a lot of people don't know. When you're reading the ingredients, if it says natural flavors on there, like a lot of the 100% juices that you find at the store, it'll say like apple juice, grape juice, water, and natural flavors. That natural flavors is just chemicals to boost the flavor, and so you're putting chemicals into your body if that's on the label. So throw all that in there. Generally, when I make my smoothies, I put like 2 or 3 times as much greens in there as I'm putting in with you. I'm just breaking you guys in slowly, but the more greens you can eat per day, the better you're going to feel, the more nutrient-dense food you're going to get into you, the more your disease prevention powers are going to be coming to you. So normally if I do romaine, I put a whole head of romaine into my smoothie. And if I do spinach, like I'll fill up half the blender with berries and stuff, and then the other half of the blender with spinach. So put as much as you can in, but be aware that you might have to start with a little and then increase it.
Is that a serving for you? Or
So for me, I'm a full-time student, a single parent, and I work. And last year I was working in a hospital. I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive to Salt Lake, work a 12 or 13-hour day, drive back, and who's hungry at 4 o'clock in the morning? Not me, right? And so I would make a full blender full of smoothie, and I got an insulated thermos that carried the whole thing, and I would just make that, and I would just sip on it during the day, and that would be my breakfast and first, pre-lunch. And then by the time I got through that, I'd gotten my 15 servings of fruits, vegetables, and greens in during the day, and then I was, ready for lunch after that. So for me, I usually do the whole blender full, and then I put it in an insulated thermos and take it with me wherever I go. But it just depends on your appetite and how much you can eat and how much you want. So you could probably put twice that many greens in there and it still would taste great. Okay, so this is called intuitive cooking. So you do what you think you need to do, taste it, and then modify it from there. I'm going to put in a little tiny bit more honey because the raspberries are really tart. Give it a little whirl. I think I'm going to put in a little bit of vanilla as well. Now this one has kind of a nutty flavor because of the macadamia nuts, so if you don't like the nutty flavor, you can just put in the chia seeds or put in something else. Some people like their smoothies more fruity, some people like them more nutty. You can put in almonds, you can put in walnuts, you can put in any type of nut or seed or protein source that you like, and just get creative. Okay, I think we're good. So, I did a lot of talking while I was making this, but in reality, you can make these smoothies in 5 minutes. It's just a matter of putting all your frozen stuff in there, putting your juice in there, and thinking ahead. Remember, with your nuts and your seeds, you have to have them soaked. So generally, I always have a little jar of soaked chia seeds in my fridge all the time. Here, you guys can serve that up. And then my chia seeds are ready whenever I need. Generally, I have some type of soaked nuts in my fridge at all times. I always have frozen fruit in the freezer. I have frozen bananas in the freezer. So really, like at any time when I'm hungry and I need something sweet or something filling or a quick meal, all you have to do is just grab your stuff, throw it in the blender, and it's a 5-minute meal. It's really easy. All right, do we have any more questions about that?
How long do they keep in the refrigerator, the seeds?
Oh, the seeds? Once you soak the seeds, a couple days, like 2 or 3 days at the most.
How about the almond milk?
The almond milk, usually it's so delicious it's gone before that happens, but I think it'll last like five or so days after you make it. Yes?
You might mention you can keep the chia seeds a lot longer, so feel free.
Yes, the chia seeds can last a week or more.
6 is what I read.
6 weeks soaked? Wow, cool. 6 weeks.
Are there any fruits that you can't freeze and just have on hand?
I'm trying to think of an exclusion to the frozen fruit rule. Yeah, with oranges, like all you have to do is peel them first. And with oranges, if you want to peel them and puree them and do the ice cube trick again, that works really well for smoothies. If you want to freeze fruit and you're wondering how to do it, put it in your Vitamix, puree it, put it in the ice cube trays, and then put it in a Ziploc bag. And then you have your instant frozen fruit to put in your smoothie if you need it. If it's not convenient, like peaches and berries and stuff. Yes?
I was just asking, how many chia seeds do you put in that smoothie?
About a quarter cup. Yeah. So with hemp seeds, chia seeds, nuts, I start out with like a 1/4 cup, and then if you want it to be more filling and more satiating, or if you need more protein, add in more. But I start out with like a 1/4 cup. Yes.
What do you think about flaxseed? I mean, you mentioned a lot of seeds, but not flaxseed.
Flax seeds are like the big health rage, right now. For me, I cannot stand the taste of flax seeds. They're really slimy, and I don't like the flavor. And I've seriously, like when I started doing raw food, I tried so many recipes with flax seeds, and every single one of them, like it made me want to barf because I couldn't stand the taste, and I can't stand like the slimy texture for flax seeds. That's just me though. So they are high in omega-3s. They've got a good amino acid profile. They're good. They've got good fiber. With flax seeds though, with flax and chia seeds, remember that all of the essential fatty acids and the nutrients are inside of them. So if you don't grind them or break them open or chew them really, really good, you're not going to get the nutrition. So with flax seeds and chia seeds, make sure you either blend them, grind them, or chew them really good so that you can get all of the protein or all of the nutrients out of them. And I find that the chia seeds are actually, they have a better nutrition profile than flax seeds, and they don't have that slimy texture or the taste. So I've totally switched over from flax seeds to chia seeds, but if you like them, go ahead and use them. They work. Any other questions? Yes?
Well, when you're cooking food, it changes the chemical composition of it. But when you freeze food, it changes the composition as well.
Mhm.
Does that take out some of the nutrients when you freeze food then?
It does, and the basic statistics for that, give or take, depending on how you process them. But once you freeze a food, about 50% of the nutrition is gone. Once you cook it, about 90% is gone. And also that applies to like your foods from Mexico and South America too. Like after they've been on the truck for that long and sitting around and irradiated, that negates a lot of the nutrition as well. Thank you for coming. I will see you next week.
Thank you.